All right. So to get things started in a good way, we're going to have our guest Vickie Oldman, you'll see her later on in the summit to deliver our keynote message. She'll be beginning our proceedings with an opening prayer. So at this time, I'm going to take down my screen share real quick and let Vickie go ahead and start us off with a wonderful opening prayer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Izzy. Yat Abina, good morning, everyone. It is 7 o'clock where I'm at, so I know you all are probably going into the afternoon, some of you anyway. Um, I was hoping that if you had water by you, if you can have a glass of water by you before we get started, you can have that. I know some of us are in commute. So, and then I just ask if you're able to, if you can stand with me, wherever you're at, if you can stand with me, that'd be great. Okay. And just like us all to take a deep breath in. Creator, Universe, Mother Earth, AIHEART, thank you so much for another beautiful day. We're ever so blessed as souls on this plane, learning and trying to be together and connecting and understanding and ourselves, more importantly, and how we connect with one another. We're ever so grateful for this beautiful planet that we walk upon. We thank you for all the animals and plant life that give themselves so generously to feed us, to clothe us, to give us medicine, to help keep this planet in balance. We pray for the people for all over this world and country and spaces. There's a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of hurt, a lot of wondering, a lot of hopelessness, a lot of fear. We pray that we take those in and we also come out in a way that is positive, in a way that is creative, in a way that is hopeful, and knowing that we all have been through unforeseen times and that we've learned through them and that we also have come out knowing more or knowing things in a different way, seeing things with a different perspective. Help us to all be in a place of humbleness and able to receive whatever is meant to be received. We pray for leadership in this world, in this country, to help to remind each person that they're human, that being on this planet is about relationship and about connection, and to help leaders remember that in the work that they're elected to do, and positions that they're in, whether it's with a large organization to a small group of collective, even a leader in the community and a leader within the home. We pray for them all in that way. We pray for all of our extended family and friends who have allowed us to be here today. There are many people in our lives, mentors, friends, elders, siblings, and extended relatives who've taught us things, who showed us ways, who've given us hard love lectures to remind us of how we need to be stepping forward and stepping back. We pray for them. We pray for our family, our love pod that is home. We pray for our fur babies that bring us joy and always seeing us for who we are. And communicating with us in ways that they can. We pray for our homesteads, our vehicles, we pray for the organization that we're all serving and representing. We pray for the community that they also see themselves as a strength and a pillar and a part of this work that we're all trying to do. We pray for the next 2 days that everybody that is here show up fully, whatever that looks like for them, that they show up the best way that they can to see things differently, to hear things differently, to even share things in a different way. We pray for them all to be present, to be humble, to be willing to receive, but also to reciprocate that through engagement and through sharing and through taking it back to their regional hubs. So we pray for all that. We pray for all the speakers that are coming in today. A lot of them are speaking through their heart, through lived experience and work experience. And we ask that you speak through them and guide them, and whatever is meant to be said during the workshops and presentations, that it is all coming out through in a way that is medicine for all. And thank you at this time, IHEART, for this honor to just communicate with you and to remind us of all the simple things in much gratitude. Hijin hustling, hijin hustling, hijin hustling, hijin hustling. And if you're able to, just like
Prestige.
you to take a glass of water and drink some water. Wow. I like for all of us to take a deep breath. I'm gonna lead us. I'm gonna pull up my notes here. I'm gonna lead us in um, some breathing work. That was a lot. And I just want to say thank you. Good morning again. Um, Mary and Norma and Tom and Stephanie and Izzy all had some already in their just welcome remarks, have noticed some things that I think that will be shed in this next time frame about the work. And I'll circle back to that. But what I'd love for you all to do is wherever you're at. I know some of us are in commute, some of us maybe just joined in. I just want us to connect with our bodies and really be in sync with one another. Um, and do what is comfortable for you. And if that means just sitting and just breathing normal, that's what I want you to do. I want us to really close the veil behind us, because we've all, before we came onto Zoom, were engaging with someone by phone, by text, in person. Maybe we're driving to our work location. Maybe we're at home at the kitchen table or in our bedroom, just trying to show up the best way that we can. And so just wanting to help us be here fully present. And so if you are not comfortable with the video on, you feel free to turn off your screen, but I'm going to leave mine up for demo purposes. And so I've been learning a lot about breathing and about the nervous system, and I really think that is one of the essential things in our work, and the work that you all are doing, is to really kind of center on yourselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you're comfortable, close your eyes. If not, just look at a 45-degree angle down. And you can sit down. I'd like you, if you're sitting down, try to not have your back against the chair, and to make sure that your feet is on the floor. It's planted on the floor. And we are going to first practice this breath where we inhale through our nose, and you're going to exhale. And then when you exhale, you're going to exhale through your nose. Your mouth is closed. So it kind of has that Darth Vader sound. So it sounds like this. So if you can do that. So that is the breathing technique that we're going to use. But what we're going to do differently is we're going to take a deep inhale for 4 seconds. So we're going to go like this. And then you're going to pinch your nose, and you're going to put your head down for 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Head up, release, and exhale through your nose. We're going to do that a couple times. So let's try that again. You're going to do a deep inhale through your nose. Pinch, head down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Head up, release, exhale through your nose. All right, so do that at your own rhythm. I'm going to do that. Let's try to at least do that 4 times together. All right, so get comfortable and let's take a deep inhale. Second inhale. Third inhale. Last inhale. And just get back to your normal breathing. Drink some water if you have any by you. Thank you. I hope that that helped you just to kind of settle in and to be with one another, to engage with one another. Um, you all are at a really pivotal time in your life with this organization, 4 years in the movement. And the one thing that I'm really wanting this moment to be is to come back to self, and that really you check in on where you're at individually. And so I wanted to really start us off by modeling that, by coming in and just checking to see what's happening, because however you show up, it affects, it's a ripple effect in the work that you're doing and how you're thinking and how you're putting things together. And if we're not coming in a calm place, in a settled place, and co-regulating in these place in our work and with our body, it's an impact, and we get stressed. And so that's number one. The other thing, the reason why I wanted to do the breath work with you all, is it helps us here virtually to sync with one another, to be at a same cadence, at a same rhythm in how we're moving together. And you as a collective spread out in various regions, it's important to settle in, to connect with yourself and connect with your peers, and then moving together in unison. And if everyone's all frantic and laid back and the energy's all over, and you're trying to move forward, that's hard to do. So I really wanted to model that. And my challenge to you all as you go forward and continuing this work, when you connect with your meetings, when you connect in whatever way that you try to do, some grounding and connection before jumping into the work. So thank you for playing with me there. It's an honor to be here with you today. She'eya Vickie Oldman winshia sana jini nishla hash ishni bashish teen hona ani ada shiche but ani ada shanala. I am Dana. I'm originally from St. Michael's, a place called Butterfly Butte, and it's right outskirts of Winter Rock. And I'm actually what you would say a not I don't want replacement baby. My parents met in Cleveland, Ohio. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. So the places that have shaped me, to who I am today, is being born out in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't remember much of it, but that's where I was born. And when my parents moved back, and I would say the two places that really shaped me to become a woman, the woman that I am, a young person, a young lady, is Red Mesa, Arizona, which is where my Nellies are, which is my dad's family, my grandparents there. So I grew up in a different generation of where there was no running water and electricity. They had sheep and cattle, and they had their own gardens. I mean, my kids didn't grow up that way, but I had the gift of doing that and learning that. And then we moved back to St. Michael's, Arizona, where I grew up for my formative years. And when I left, the other two places that shaped me, I would say professionally, is Phoenix area. I worked for the Gila River tribe and the Salt River tribe. I worked there for a couple of years and got my degree there, and then got called out. I feel like universe pulled me into New Mexico, and for to do work with the CDFI. And that was my very first time working for a non-tribal organization. Most of that time I had worked with tribes. So that was a big opening, and learning about nonprofit work in a non-native sector. And that was in Albuquerque. So I've been in Albuquerque since. I live in Rio Rancho. I've been here for, well, about 27 years. And so and that's where I currently reside in Tiwo Pueblo lands and around the many lovely Pueblo relatives there. And so that those are the places that have shaped me. The people who've shaped me, of course, are my grandmother, my aunties, my parents, my siblings, my children, dear friends, mentors. All of them have played an impact in my life to help me be the person that I am today. Those people that I described to you all are funny. They're very generous. They can be mean too, forgiving, direct, patient. Oh, let me go back to direct. They're just really direct, particularly my relatives. Patient, detail oriented. They're artists, they're healers, they're weavers, they're storytellers, they're cooks, they're survivors, they're hopeful and they have faith. There's so much more. And so that's a little bit about who I am. And I really feel like all those things have helped shape about what I love the most, and that is storytelling. I have a love project where I interview people. It's a podcast. It's called Real Native Roots Untold Stories. And I love to hear people's journey because I feel like as Indigenous people, that is where our learning comes from, is by really listening deeply, by being fully present to hear the story deeply and to pull from that. And that's why during the wintertime we all had stories. There was lessons there for us, and it was repetitive, right? Every year we would have these stories, and during ceremony we have these stories. And so I wonder what that looks like for iHeart. What is iHeart's story? What's the story that needs to be retold over and over again? What's the time that you start a meeting? When you think about a meeting and how you come together, that is a form, that's a protocol. It's like, I'm not saying it's like ceremony, but it's coming together, learning from one another. There's cadence in how you move. What does that look like? Is it consistent across the region, right? Um, Noting and giving that every region is different, but there's certain etiquette in how we show up and lean into each other. Um, so I offer that to you all. I'm thinking I would love in in the chat box, if you can, as I go to the next thing, I would love for you to note some descriptions about your people. I had shared a little bit about my people. I want to see your people. Are they funny? Are they generous? So in the chat box, if you can put a couple of descriptions of your people. And I had used an example of like hilarious. Yeah. Witty. I love the word witty. Yeah. Generous, kidding all around, nomadic. Yes. And I want us, thank you for all that, for giving. Yes. Fierce. Yes. I want to bring all that energy into the space for you all for the next 2 days to bring in the bunny. I was trying to say bold and funny at the same time. The funny and the bold. Bring all these pieces in for the next 2 days. Have them represented in how you're showing up and how you're engaging. So, I was asked to come in and talk about what should iHeart think about in terms of you all moving forward? You all have been together for 4 years. So the first 4 years has been foundational, right? And people were giving love and chat out to Mary about her vision and supporting the vision about, hey, we need to do something. This is important. And so in these first 4 years, you all have been working hard. You've been building, you've been learning, you've been adapting, you're growing together in these 4 years. It's like a relationship, the first, 3 years is it's all about excitement and passion and creating and learning about each other, right? And so I want you to just give yourselves and use the emojis like some hearts and some claps. I want you to take acknowledgement about what you've all done. You know, a round of applause, a round of heart emojis, a round of like hands up, of all the challenges that you've overcome in these past 4 years. You've already made impact. You've made impact to where you've identified your description of who you are. You've created these regional hubs. You have a national committee. You have structures in place and how you're working together. That's a large feat in how you all are moving together. And you know, it takes strategy, right? It takes communication, it takes synergy, it takes all those things to really get you all to this place. And so I'm wondering if if you can use the chat word, the chat again. I love using the chat because I think you can go back to it later on. Um, this is the question that I have for you. Let's see if I copy paste right. If you had to describe your collective's journey in one word, what would that be? So in these past 4 years, as you all have been working together, describe your collective's journey in one word. I want to take a second, put it in there, and let's see. I want to see what folks felt. Mm, mm, illuminating empowerment and stubborn. Yes, rooted. Oh, I love that one. Growing. Mm, yeah. So many great words here. And whatever word that you chose, I really want, what I'm encouraging you all is to pull these words and think about like, are these our values? Are these iHeart's value? Because all these words here are a representation of the path that you all have traveled up to this point. And you want to take some of these with you, right? As you go forward. And so take these as you're going, think about the next 4 years, because the real question for our heart is like, what will define the collective, your collective moving forward? So how, you know, what's going to define you all and as you move forward in the next couple of years? So when I think of values, and actually I think Mary mentioned it, Norma definitely mentioned it. Um, when they were opening up, they both had mentioned the word values. And I feel like a lot of times within organizations that gets we you know organizations typically do their their mission statement, their vision statement, they create the values, and then they have it on documents, and it just kind of like it became alive when they created it, and it's still alive, but people are not really putting it into action. And so I was kind of looking at the handouts and the websites and trying to find where the values were. And so it made me think, oh, this is important. So on a piece of paper, if you can just draw a tree, and at the bottom of the tree, make sure you can see some of the roots. And what you see in the chat, if there are a couple of these that you really like, I want you to put those words by their roots. So maybe they're one of the roots for this tree is connecting. Maybe it's adaptive. Maybe it's I saw another one I was trying to look for, reconnecting, growing, whatever words. And I asked you to put the tree there because the roots is what holds this tree together. This tree is a representation of iHeart. The the tree trunk is the mission, because that is what keeps you all aligned. It helps keep you guys focused. And there's boundaries, right? You don't want to be all over the place. So it helps you to have all the nutrients come into this tree so you all can bloom to your vision, the vision that you're all aiming for. And the vision that I heard Stephanie say so well was like, we want to increase representation. We want to improve health outcomes. We want to increase collaboration. That was the other thing I think I heard every person talk about. Tom, Stephanie, Mary, and Norma was about this partnership, this collaborative. And so The tree itself, as you all bloom, is the outcomes that you're all looking for, the vision. The mission is what keeps you guys strong and like focused. And the roots that you don't want to see all the time is who and how you show up. It's how you interact with one another. It's how you do your work. It's how you connect to the community. And so that would be one of the offerings that I would really offer you all to think about is how are we modeling these values with each other? And when we engage with the community. And this is how I like folks to think about values is it's about when you have to make a hard decision, for the organization, whether it's financially, whether it's maybe redesigning the structure. Sometimes there are decisions that are really hard. That is when you lean into values. That's when values show up. When you think about yourself individually, I'll just use an example. You look at your financial statements, print out your financial statements and look at your past 3 months. It will tell you a picture of what's important to you. You pay your mortgage, you pay your vehicle. Those things are important to you, right? It shows where you eat, what kind of food you like to eat. Maybe it's you eat and shop at healthy food places, or you like to eat out. It just shows what's important to you. So, values is one really essential piece that I think is important for you all to really think about these next couple of years. What is going to hold us? What's going to grow? So, when stormy weathers come and the storm is here, this tree's got solid roots. And what I thought about with iHeart is you all are like aspen trees. And the reason why I use the aspen tree as an example is because of the network. Everyone is feeding off the each other in terms of their roots. And so so I'm transitioning to this tree because I really think iHeart should spend some time also learning from nature. We think about our indigenous people and our indigenous ways. It was all based on what's in our ecosystem, being aligned with Mother Nature, listening to what Mother Nature is saying. And if you spend enough time just taking a walk and just observing what is in that ecosystem, you're going to learn and see and notice things that have shifted or adapted. And maybe that little critter that you would see all the time is no longer there. Maybe they decide to find a new home. You'll notice those shifts. And so, what is in iHeart's ecosystem, and what do we need to be paying attention to? So that's challenge number two. One is like the values. Number two is really taking a look at your ecosystem in the regions. What's happening here? What are we missing? What are we noticing that's shifting? Because every area is different, right? Every area and the makeup is different. When we look at the aspen tree, I thought about you all when I first connected with folks, and also getting a sense of like what would be a beautiful tree to represent? And aspen was the first one that came to mind. And it actually was one of my first trees that I really wanted to learn about because I would see them at sheep camp up in the mountains. So one of the reasons why I think they're so strong and they're a good example of you all is because how interconnected the root system is, as I was telling you. So when you're looking at that organizationally, that's about collaboration and that's about culture. It's the way that they move, right? They're the trees grow like across and vast grows connected by one single root system. So in this space, right, where's the single root system coming from? And then when it's coming out of the national committee, and it's spreading out to the other regions, that is a symbolization of how strong your organization is in terms of thriving and creating deeper roots. So you're spread out, and so you want to make sure those roots are deeply connected and that you guys have the shared same values. It's fostering collaboration, communication, and how you all are aiming towards this vision. The other thing about the root system, in terms of like the aspen tree, is how adaptable and sustainable it is. So there's this sense of resilience that this particular tree has. So like when a fire happens, a really bad fire, or harsh conditions, in terms of like maybe water or just a lot of environmental changes, they're able to regenerate from their own root system. And so what does that look like for iHeart? How must you be adaptable and continuously learning about what you need to do and how you need to pivot? The other thing about an aspen tree is that they are a shared resource and strength. So they share themselves. So when I look about and I think about that, I think of it's about leadership development. It's about mentoring, right? It's about interconnecting and supporting each other. And the folks that open the space, all of them at some point or another had acknowledged each other or other people that are not in this space. That's important. And so mentorship, we need to be thinking about our young people, and giving them opportunity to show up. And it's not going to be perfect because you have to remember the very first program that you ever ran, there was a lot of bumps in the road, right? There are a lot of things that maybe you had said that you wish that you could have re-articulated or take back or have done differently. So we need to mentor and guide our people and our young people in a good way. Right now, I have a 26-year-old that I'm mentoring to teach her to hold space to facilitate. I want more Native facilitators holding space, and this is a perfect time for her to learn to shadow and to be. When you think about our indigenous ways, you think about the medicine people. Whoever was a protege, that's what they did. They shadowed, they mentored, they learn. How is iHeart doing that with the young people? It's one thing that we're providing services and trying to hear their needs, but how are we bringing them into the system, right? So that they thrive and they're learning directly from the wise wisdom that you all have. The other thing about the aspen is how fast they grow. In 4 years, you guys have created an amazing network, right? And you have a large number of members. And so thinking about change management is how I see this organizationally. So as this aspen tree grows quickly, thinking forward, do you have structures in place? Do you have systems in place to be prepared for that? Because that will take more resources. It's going to take more um, ways in how you are managing these folks. So high level, I just really wanting you to think about how can we learn from nature? How can we learn about our ecosystem so that we're able to pivot and move along with them? So there are a couple of things that I wanted to just also note about where you all are at with your vision, your mission, and then naming the values, but really looking at nature, is that I am wondering. So I guess at the end of that, I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to put the question in here. Um, I said all those things about the aspen tree because it made me curious from you all is how adaptive is iHeart as a collective? Um, you know, a couple of folks during the remarks had noted, we're in a different time right now. Things are real tricky, and it may not affect you directly, but it's interesting what I'm hearing across the board in terms of Indian country. It's affecting a lot of folks, but then there are some that are nonprofits that are like, we're fine. And so it may feel that way, right, at that time, but it makes me wonder about iHeart and how are we looking at all like 360? What are you all doing? And so maybe at this time it's okay, but what does that look like in the next 4 years? What is our environment going to look like in the next 4 years? And so how active are you all in doing that? Um, I worked. So some of these things that I'm going to be saying next is I want you to know that it's coming from a lens of me working in an actual organization. It also as me as a consultant who I do a lot of organizational development work for various nonprofits, and also as a board member. I've sat on several boards and continue to sit on boards, and I've seen how organizations have grown rapidly, and I've seen how leadership looks like, and I've seen how we had to slow down or speed up in all those phases. And I think the one thing that I know that I I learned is that we all don't know everything, and that we're all figuring it out together. There are systems, right? There's frameworks, there are tools, there are all these things that people have tried. And to do this collectively, you have to do it together. You have to figure it out together and make your own roadmap, knowing some of the tools that have worked for you all in individual places and organizations. I've seen how COVID has completely shifted the dynamics in workspaces, and people are still recovering. And how do we engage? I think that's the one thing that I'm really seeing the most is the post effect of that, where folks are really trying to get back that connection. Because before then, people were in person, they were working, and now we have virtual spaces, and people are trying to still create that connection when we're spread apart, right? When we're far apart. So, couple of things, well, so that's the adaptation piece I wanted to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention is about your culture. What does the culture look like for iHeart, and what kind of culture are you creating within the organization? And I have a couple of notes from some wise women, and it was actually through story. They were telling a story. There were three women that came together, and these are like women who I adore that I think are pioneers in Indian country. Um, Sherry Salway Black is one of them. Elsie Meeks is another one, and Lori Poirier is another one. They've all ran large institutions, and I've been mentored by them in different ways, in different capacities, and friends. And the thing that they told me, I think is helpful for you, iHeart, to think about is remembering what's the need of your focus. So your focus in the end is like really increasing our young people to be in these spaces to get what they need, right? In terms of education and improve health. That's your focus. Like, what do they need? Versus what is the need of your institution or the need of the government. And I didn't get that at first. And when they were talking, I understood it as, oh, that you're shifting the narrative. That was what I thought. But then when they said it again, they broke it down. I got it. It's because as an entity, as an organization, we get funding from different places and we have requirements that we have to fulfill. And sometimes it gets blurry and we get so focused on that, we forget about what the real focus is. And that's the need of who we're really serving. It seems straightforward, but that happens all the time. And so I really appreciated that, is that remembering that. The other thing along that was, I remember Elsie saying is that, we need to be walking with them. We need to walk with the people that we're serving. Because when you're with them, when you're walking with them, you're hearing things differently. And that takes time. That takes time out of our day to be in the community, to be with those folks, to learn directly from them, and hearing how we're doing the work differently. And they kept mentioning a lot about being in a collective and doing this work together. And we all have different experiences, and bringing that in and offering. I think it's how the approach is about how can we figure this out collectively versus I know the way. And I'm not saying that iHeart's doing that, but I'm just kind of noting things that I know that have helped organizations when they are moving forward to the next trajectory. And that's what's hard about where any organization, when they're moving to the next phase, so to speak, because 4 years you've done a lot of building, and now you're at a place where you're growing. And so this place now, it may be a little squiggly or fuzzy, because it's like we're still trying to feel out what that next pathway, or maybe really making that pathway clear. um, the one thing I hear time and time again, just from being with the different organizations, is strategy. You got to have a really clear strategy about where you're going. And I get that things are shifting, and so when that happens, then you make a change. You adjust how you're shifting with your strategy. And I really thinking about doing things a little differently than you normally have done before. The other thing I think is just remembering that there's something bigger than us. And you all clearly know that. And it feels good to be a part of something that is bigger than the work that we're doing. And so keeping that in mind in terms of like the theme of what you're trying to focus on and what's the legacy, right? What do you want to be celebrating? What will be some defining moments in the next chapter? What word you know, would you want to see? I had asked you what the journey was like here, right? So in the next 4 years, um, what will those words be? What will the collective words be then in terms of where you're going and what you're going to do? So I'd love for us to take a deep breath in, exhale. As you all are growing, and this next phase, you once you identify a strategy and getting clear on that, and you're working on how the value system is. Um, the other thing I feel like in the regions that you all are at is to really understand the regions and the systems. Um, it's another way of saying, like, we always talk about we got to know our history. We got to understand how policy became the way it was formed so we're able to navigate. So, spending some time reassessing, reevaluating, and making sure that we understand what's happening in our way, because when you're doing that, you're better able to pivot. You're also better able to create ways and how you're serving the folks that you're serving. I think everything in moderation as you move forward. I think setting boundaries also are important. That's why I feel like in that tree analogy, the trunk of the tree is important because it's allowing you to be mindful about your boundaries and about what you can and can't do, right? So here's some other considerations. I'm just going to kind of read them. And they're questions. They're questions for you to be thinking about as you go forward, as your new chapter. Like, what are the next 4 years are going to look like? What are those words that you want? So strengthening your regional and like your national committee, is there alignment? How well are the regional hubs and NCC working together? You might like, yeah, we're great, we're doing good. Like, but how are we really working together? There's always room for improvement. What do we want, right? Like, what are the outcomes of how we're working together? What does that look like? How will we know when we're in a line? And what needs shifting? Um, so that's one thing, is looking at the alignment between these hubs and asking those really thoughtful questions. And I think doing that often, so quarterly, maybe you're checking in, just a quick 15-minute check-in, like how are we doing in these areas? Um, how are you ensuring that the hubs and the committees are like getting what they need, that they feel supported, they're not burnt out, that they remain engaged? What does engagement look like, and what does burnout look like, and how these hubs are working together? um, you also want to be looking at development. What does the workforce pipeline look like, right? What are the new challenges and strategies that can address those things? How diverse is your funding? Looking at financial sustainability. Do you guys have a multi-year funding commitment to sustain the regional hubs and NCC, the national committee? Um, what about advocacy? Does advocacy a part of this work? How can your collective voice to influence policy and funding for the network? How are you capturing stories, like the impact, and communicating the impact that you're having? How are you sharing those successful stories? How are you getting it directly from the folks who are receiving the work that you're doing, as well as hearing stories from the hubs, the people themselves? I think there are different levels of capturing story. And how are you regularly exchanging strategies? How are you regularly exchanging challenges? How are you regularly sharing best practices? There's a a process called Wise Counsel, which I use all the time. I think that would be a great tool for you all to be thinking about to use regionally within the regions. And it's identifying a particular, I'm struggling with this. And you ask questions, the people are listening, ask questions, and then you offer, it's a different way of offering solutions. And the person who is sharing that takes what they will and implements that. But it's a nice, quick way. You can do it like in 15, 20 minutes. Um, again, there are different creative ways in how you can do that. I'm going to underscore the very first thing about connection. As we as Indigenous people, when we come in, we come home, we come and connect in ceremony. The very first thing that we do is we check in as human beings. I remember early in my 20s, I came home one day went to go visit my uncle. He's, lived in walking distance. I went to go see him. And he goes, "How you doing, sweetheart?" And the first thing I said was like, "Oh, I'm doing this. I was talking about work and where I was going, what I was doing, who I was working with." And then he just sat there and he took a sip of coffee and he says, "I want to know how you are doing." He didn't want to know anything about that. He wanted to know about Vickie, like, "How are you doing, sweetheart?" So checking in, like, "Hey, Stephanie, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? How are you arriving?" I think it's important. I think it's important to connect as human beings. Work is always going to be there. Work is important. There is urgency. I get that. But as in Native people, when you think about the way we showed up in those spaces was not in a sense of urgency. It was a sense of like, it'll happen when it needs to happen. Things will unfold the way we need to have, like it's following the speed of trust in this work. I would also look at reassessing your decision-making structure. What does that look like? What are regional hubs in charge of, and what kind of decisions can they make? What are decisions that need to be made up here? Like reevaluating that. Are we doing a good job in defining how decisions are being made? And what is the protocol? That is sometimes it can get tricky. So how are you aligning your data collection? How you're measuring across all hubs in helping to tell the story so you can get more funding to come in. Taking care of ourselves, preventing burnout. You are at a critical time when you start to grow and expand, and upon that, your regular work, right? Um, it can get overwhelming, and to really create your own boundaries and do some professional development, some retreats. I think is important. It's important to meet in person. So I'm so glad you guys met last year to connect in real time and to feel each other's energy. So continue to find time to prevent that from happening and incorporate cultural events, food and things like that in experiences as you go forward. I encourage you to try your hardest not to form silos between these hubs. I think part of the communication channels will prevent that. Um, Try to also make sure that your partners, you all talked a little bit about partnerships. What does the partnerships look like as you move across the board, right? And how are they committed? And does the commitment remain the same as you are working with these various partners? Um, and then what about transition as another thing to be thinking about? Are you all looking at future transitions with individuals, succession planning? I know it's been 4 years, but people come and go in different regions. How are the regional hubs looking at succession planning? So if a particular partner is doing a lot of, a particular work, is it written down? Is there someone who's in training so that that piece can be carried forward? So I think succession planning is also really important to be thinking about the regional hubs, the overall organization. So knowledge is retained, and if people move on, that you have someone ready to go and moving forward. So I leave all these things in terms of it's a lot that I know there are a lot of questions, a lot of elements. And if I come back to where you all are at and how you're moving forward, the first word that comes to my mind is about slow, intentional strategies as you go forward. knowing that there's a lot currently, right now, currently there's a lot happening. And so, what does that look like for iHeart? How do we do that intentionally? Definitely with some visioning of like, what's this going to look like in the next 4 years? What is our next 4-year milestones that we're creating? What does that look like financially? What does that look like relationally? What does that look like for every individual that's a part of this collaborative? What does that look like in the outcome with who we're working with and serving? What does that look like in terms of funding sources? What does that look like with policy? Like all those pieces that make our heart beat. What does that look like in the next 4 years? And I think once you've named those things, then scaling back to like what is possible in the next 4 years, and you can work your way towards those things. Visioning is very powerful. I think it's important that we all do that and organizations take time to do that. Even as simple as in the meetings that you have, what's the vision for our meeting today? What do we want to accomplish in this time frame that we have? Breaking it down to it working in a more regional base. So for the next 4 years, 4 years ago, I should say, 4 years ago, you started something meaningful. And it's a beautiful thing to witness and what you've all decided to do. And today you have the power to decide what comes next, collectively, and how you want to move forward. So let's, for you all, not to just aim about sustainability, because that is important, is to really strengthen the roots, identify the roots and strengthen the roots, and making sure that they're so that you're able to evolve, to lead and transform, because this collective, this movement, I know is just getting started. So I thank you all so much for the opportunity to share, and to sit with nature, to use this tree as a way to look at the next 4 years for you all and how you're moving about. And with all of that, I just like for us to all take another deep breath collectively and exhale.